Keeping Scientology Working, KSW. Overview of what's covered. What is technology, in Scientology? The role of KSW in Scientology, according to former members and experts. Keeping Scientology Working, KSW, policy, an in-depth look. What is source in Scientology? Contracts and legal waivers in Scientology, another way to keep Scientology working. The Scientological onion metaphor, how Scientology keeps operating. What is technology, in Scientology? In Scientology, tech refers to L. Ron Hubbard's teachings and methodologies, which he claimed were based on research, testing, and scientific principles. Tech encompasses all of Hubbard's references, including books, lectures, policies, bulletins, and processes used to guide others on their spiritual journey, making it the foundation of Scientology practices. The role of KSW in Scientology, according to former members and experts. The KSW, Keeping Scientology Working, policy is considered one of the most critical edicts in the structure and belief system of Scientology. Former members and experts describe it as a strict mandate requiring that every process within the organization follows L. Ron Hubbard's original teachings exactly. No deviations are allowed, ensuring that the tech is applied uniformly and unchallenged. This rigid enforcement of KSW solidifies Scientology's commitment to maintaining Hubbard's teachings as the inalterable foundation for both spiritual practices and organizational control. Experts have highlighted key points about the impact of KSW. Strict adherence. KSW demands complete obedience to Hubbard's processes, leaving no room for innovation or adjustment. Former members describe this as preventing any evolution or questioning of the system. Organizational control. By ensuring that Hubbard's methods remain the only accepted path, KSW reinforces a closed-loop system of control where nothing outside of Hubbard's teachings is considered valid. This locks members into the Scientology worldview, with all spiritual and organizational decisions based on these immutable principles. Internal indoctrination. KSW instills in members the idea that Hubbard's way is the only way. This creates a framework where personal values and critical thinking are replaced with strict loyalty to Scientology's methods, as designed by Hubbard. This unwavering commitment to KSW, as shared by former members and critics, ensures that Scientology remains one of the most rigid and closed-off organizations, where deviation from the established teachings is not tolerated. Here are some specifics on what these experts have shared. Tony's insights. Tony Ortega, a seasoned journalist who has covered Scientology extensively since 1995, highlights that the Keeping Scientology Working, KSW, policy demands unwavering adherence to L. Ron Hubbard's teachings. Ortega explains that KSW requires members to memorize and internalize Hubbard's methods, ensuring that all practices are done the way Hubbard designed. This strict adherence forms the backbone of Scientology's practices, making Hubbard's teachings unchangeable. Ortega describes Scientology as among the most fundamentalist groups you will ever find due to its inability to modify Hubbard's methods. According to Ortega, KSW becomes central to the life of a Scientologist, replacing any previous values and becoming the ultimate directive that dictates all behavior and thought. Even today, Scientology emphasizes delivering standard tech standardly, with KSW serving as one of the organization's most important policies. The idea is that the only way to practice Scientology is by following Hubbard's instructions exactly as they were codified, with no room for deviation. Claire's observations. Claire Headley, a former high-ranking member of Scientology, emphasizes how KSW subtly transforms members' thinking. She notes that as members progress through seemingly innocuous exercises, their values begin to shift, being replaced by the directives of KSW. Headley underscores that even at the lowest levels of Scientology, indoctrination begins, with every activity designed to increase control over the individual. She stresses that there is no innocent exercise in Scientology, because all actions lead to further submission and dedication to the organization. John's perspective. John Attic, a cult expert and previous Scientologist, expands on the importance of KSW within the organization. He notes that KSW is one of the most quoted policy letters and appears on almost every course within Scientology, aside from the very introductory ones. Its purpose is to instill reverence for Hubbard as the undisputed source of truth, warning members to hammer out of existence incorrect technology. John also explains how this policy reinforces the Scientologists' mission to protect and perpetuate standard tech, Scientology's official methods. Mike's commentary. Mike Rinder, an ex-Scientologist and former high-level executive in Scientology, further elaborates on the importance of KSW, describing it as Hubbard's most important edict. The policy is required reading at the start of courses in Scientology and reiterates that purportedly only Hubbard had risen above all others to solve the mysteries of the universe. Patty's view. Patty Moha, another ex-member of 27 years, highlights how KSW prohibits debate or scholarship analysis within Scientology. Members are required to follow Hubbard's words exactly as he wrote them, without question or deviation. According to her, the indoctrination in Scientology suppresses critical thinking and teaches unquestioning acceptance of Hubbard's doctrines. Chris's take. Chris Shelton, another ex-member of 27 years, notes that Hubbard himself demanded that Scientology remain static and unchanging by instituting KSW. In this policy, Hubbard declared that he had perfected the only workable system on the planet capable of freeing every man, woman, and child. This proclamation of having developed the ultimate solution further reinforces the rigid control that KSW enforces over the organization. Conclusion. KSW is not merely a policy within Scientology but a fundamental tenet that shapes how members view themselves, their organization, and the world. By demanding absolute adherence to Hubbard's methods, it creates a system where critical thinking is discouraged, personal values are replaced, and unquestioning loyalty to Scientology becomes the ultimate priority. This unwavering adherence has allowed Scientology to maintain control over its members while preventing change or adaptation within the organization. Keeping Scientology working, KSW, policy, an in-depth look. The 10 points of KSW stress enforcing standard tech while eliminating incorrect technology. Each point demands strict application of Scientology's practices with no tolerance for mistakes. The policy stresses intense adherence, going as far as stating, "We'd rather have you dead than incapable," showing Scientology's extreme stance on compliance. KSW also eliminates open-minded skepticism and expects members to follow without question. KSW, getting the correct technology applied consists of 1. Having the correct technology, which Hubbard asserts has already been achieved. 2. Knowing the technology, which he claims many within Scientology have also achieved. 3. Knowing it is correct, Hubbard says this comes from application and observation. 4. Teaching correctly the correct technology, Hubbard claims this is done worldwide throughout Scientology. 5. Applying the technology, which Hubbard also says is already happening. 6. Seeing that the technology is correctly applied, Hubbard states that instructors and supervisors do this already. 7. Hammering out of existence incorrect technology is the first problem area according to Hubbard, which he calls a weak point only handled by a few. 8. Knocking out incorrect applications, which Hubbard says is not worked on hard enough. 9. Closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology, Hubbard says this is impeded by the reasonable attitude of the not quite bright. 10. Closing the door on incorrect application, Hubbard says this is seldom done with enough ferocity. The 10 directives Hubbard listed in the 1965 policy letter, when considered as a whole, seek to ensure the proper and continued application of Scientology standard tech along with the eradication of anything counter to it. According to Scientology in popular culture, influences and struggles for legitimacy. In a section on KSW.4 teaching correctly the correct technology, Hubbard states, "The most trouble in the past 2 years came from organizations, where an executive in each could not assimilate straight Scientology. Under instruction in Scientology they were unable to define terms or demonstrate examples of principles. When we instruct half-mindedly and are afraid to offend, scared to enforce, we don't make students into good Scientologists. The proper instruction attitude is, you're here so you're a Scientologist. Now we're going to make you into an expert auditor no matter what happens. We'd rather have you dead than incapable." This last sentence has been cited in a report by the German state government of Baden-Württemberg as evidence that Scientology represents a totalitarian ideology. Another portion from the KSW policy states no open-minded skepticism or questioning, as seemingly they want people who can more easily be indoctrinated. When somebody enrolls, consider he or she has joined up for the duration of the universe. Never permit an open-minded approach. If they're going to quit, let them quit fast. If they enrolled, they're aboard, and if they're aboard, they're here on the same terms as the rest of us, win or die in the attempt. What is source in Scientology? Members of Scientology refer to L. Ron Hubbard as source, the ultimate sole authority on all matters, both personal and spiritual. However, despite this title, Hubbard was not truly the originator of many of the ideas in Scientology. His work is largely a compilation of pre-existing concepts, which he reframed to fit his own belief system. His talent lay in articulating these borrowed ideas in a digestible and compelling way, making them appear original. Members of Scientology are encouraged to consult only Hubbard's teachings, even for personal issues, and seeking external help, such as therapy, is strictly prohibited. Expressing any opinion that contradicts the organization's official stance can result in being labeled a criminal, creating an environment of fear and suppression. As a result, members are often too afraid to voice their true thoughts due to the threat of expensive, mandatory interrogations that they are required to pay themselves. Over time, this pressure can lead to feelings of entrapment and a growing realization that they lack personal independence or freedom. Common phrases heard within Scientology that reinforce Hubbard's position as the sole authority include: get it from source. What does source say about it? What does L. Ron Hubbard say about it? These expressions further entrench the notion that all knowledge and guidance must come from him, reinforcing the idea of control and indoctrination through a central figure whose ideas were not as original as they seem. Contracts and legal waivers in Scientology, another way to keep Scientology working. The series of contracts Scientology uses play a critical role in maintaining its control and operations by creating a legal framework that shields the organization from external scrutiny and lawsuits. Here's how these contracts help Scientology function the way it does. Legal shielding. Through contracts with binding arbitration clauses, members give up their right to take disputes to court, which can lead to Scientology controlling dispute resolution internally. This, paired with First Amendment religious protections, helps to keep its practices insulated from legal scrutiny. Secrecy. Contracts such as the Religious Files Contract and Secret OT Contract prevent members from accessing their own information or disclosing Scientology doctrines, helping maintain the exclusivity, control and secrecy of the advanced OT levels. Coercion and compliance. Financial penalties for breaches of confidentiality and restrictions on legal actions create a climate of fear and compliance, discouraging members from dissent or whistleblowing. Control over health. The Kidnap Contract gives Scientology the power to intervene during mental health crises and detain members during mental health crises, bypassing and preventing outside medical or psychiatric care. This contract allows the church to maintain control over members' well-being, removing outside influence and reinforcing reliance on Scientology's own practices. Isolation from external support. By preventing members from associating with individuals opposed to Scientology, the contracts isolate members from external support, such as family or therapists, reinforcing loyalty and tunnel vision immersion in Scientology's belief system. These contracts collectively ensure that Scientology retains power over its members, protects its secrets, and avoids legal challenges, enabling the church to function with minimal external interference. The Scientological onion metaphor: how Scientology keeps operating. The Scientological onion metaphor from L. Ron Hubbard, Messiah or Madman, illustrates the layers of control within Scientology, from public relations to deeper manipulation. Layer 0. Front groups disguise their affiliation with Scientology, allowing it to influence the public while concealing its involvement. Layer 1. The public image, where Scientology presents itself as a positive organization through celebrity endorsements, humanitarian efforts, and self-improvement courses. Critics claim this layer is superficial, serving as a lure. Layer 2. Deeper indoctrination, where members adopt Scientology's ideology, lose critical thinking, accept deceptive practices, and are subjected to aggressive sales tactics. Reports suggest life savings, inheritances, and credit have been drained during hard sell sessions. Layer 3. Confidential upper levels, promising total freedom that remains unattainable, keeping members continuously paying and committed, an elusive dangling carrot. Layer 4. Staff and Sea Org members face more extreme manipulation, including harsh working conditions and continued indoctrination, including extreme sales tactics. Layer 5. External tactics of intimidation, involving lawsuits, harassment, and blackmail, using personal information gathered during auditing to silence critics and control the narrative. Layer 6. The innermost core, where Scientology's darkest secrets and true motivations are hidden, including Hubbard's personal flaws and undisclosed history. Overall, Scientology presents an appealing outer image, but each deeper layer reveals increasingly coercive and secretive practices, exploiting members as they progress within the organization.